Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Place. We're going to be talking to one of my favorite Canadians, Shawn Dealey from Sweetwater, about everything microphone. If you need to know, this episode you'll find out. The other exciting stuff that's happening is we're going to bring you lots of stuff, lots of opportunity. First off, the Pensado's Place Sweetwater Marketplace is on and popping. Go to the link below. Stuff we like, gear, headphones, microphones, software, monitors, you name it. And if you click it and you want it, you click the link before, you'll get some benefits. So again, click the link below us, sorry. Also, we want to alert you to companies we like. Here's one that we really like, Dave and I both. It's called Nugent. They're coming out with their new Paragon ST this week. They have great products overall. Dave sat down with Freddie from Nugent. We're going to bring that to you next week. Keep your eye on them. They've got stuff good going on. Also, they're back. Our show started with Avid, and they're back with us again, and they're back giving you opportunities to grab Pro Tools at a great deal. First of all, we got 2 weeks of giveaways, 6 winners per week. All you have to do is enter your information at pensadosplace.tv/giveaway. 6 per week. I want to read your name. Hit it, get it, go. Also, if you're a student or a teacher, you can get Pro Tools Ultimate at a 50% discount. Again, go to the link. Avid's making it real juicy for you to get involved, and they've got some announcements coming down the pike that's going to be really cool. Stay tuned, stay close to Avid. Also, our good friends at Isotope, they joined forces with Native Instruments, so that's going to be scary. They've got some great product combinations coming, and they've combined their legendary Music Production Suite 4.1 with Native Instruments Complete 13. It's the ultimate studio kit. Get it, go. They're offering some great deals until March 22nd. Click the link below to take advantage of the special pricing, and you can clean up. One last plug-in that Dave loves. It's from Blackbird and Kit. They've combined the legendary John McBride. You want to hear this stuff. Dave just flips over it. You can visit kitplugins.com and download the Blackbird N105 version 2. Really good stuff. Do us a favor, hit us up. We want to hear from you. Hit us on all of our socials, like, subscribe, and click notify. And now to my fellow Canadian. Now, we decided to outplaid each other. Plaid, and you'll see he has on plaid. So, Shawn, I told you I'd do that. Shawn has worked with Counting Crows, Goo Goo Dolls, a whole bunch of people. He is a studio chieftain and an expert on all things mics, and we dig in deep so that you can take advantage of this information and make your stuff sound better, capture your live stuff better, whatever you need that has to do with microphones. Shawn Dealey's a man. So without further ado, I'm going to take my plaid wrap myself up in all my plaid, and enjoy this episode with Shawn Dealey. Welcome to the show, bro.
Thanks for having me.
We're from one Canuck to another. Yeah. Absolutely. The thing that's fascinating is in the lifeblood of our show, whenever we've done things with gear and other stuff, we get a big response to microphones. We recently did, if you can see this is the Ara by AKG. We recently did something with them. We had responses from over 100 countries. Tell us why the mic and the importance of it, and your perspective on mic and mic techniques.
Well, I think that microphones really are the looking glass into the audio that we're catching, right? So as long as we have something that we like and are able to capture performances or reproduce things or, record podcasts, the microphone is sort of the centerpiece of what we do as engineers. So that's something that is at the utmost of importance here. At Sweetwater and at the studios, we have a huge selection of things to choose from these days, but that's something that I always sort of gravitate towards making a lot of my choices when I'm making records and mixing shows, is how microphones work, how I know them, and how to put them into play to make the best result. So,
hey Shawn, so there's this thing among us engineers. Do you get a 50 or 60-year-old U47, or do you get a brand new one? Which sounds better? I say there's no such thing as a good sounding vintage mic because the caps have been changed 20 times, the capsule's been changed, and so we're not hearing the same mics that Sinatra used. And so I think the new ones are the way to go. What's your thought?
Well, I've found in my experience, I ended up sort of curating a bunch of vintage mics for many years, and they sounded amazing, but consistent they were not. I find that the old stuff, as soon as it's about to break, it usually sounds the best. So, when you can choose something that's going to be reliable and use that every day and plug that in and know what it's going to sound like, I feel like that's a big thing, and that's something where all across the board when it comes to gear these days, it's just maintenance on stuff and keeping it working. If you can pull something out that is fresh and functioning and has no problems, it's going to be something that is hopefully going to make your job easier as an engineer. So,
And you know what? Along that line, to that point, what we've noticed from the beginning of the show to now is now mixing and mastering and recording and the whole process is a continuation of one thing. It used to be somebody did this, and they gave it to somebody else for them to do that, and you gave it to somebody else. But now there's sort of a continuation where the consistency in the gear and how you're connecting and keeping the process going has to connect and be seamless. It can't not work, and it can't sound so different, and you got to spend time adjusting. There's as the process evolves and the technology evolves, the demand for consistency evolves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, consistency among different microphones, but when you're choosing, like when I choose microphones from the beginning of a recording process, it's going to be me editing, me mixing the tracks later. So if I'm choosing a microphone that's going to work well for a situation, or if I'm just trying it because it's something I've never tried before, that could backfire. But the consistency of new products, and then knowing what you have in your arsenal to pull out and use that works for specific applications is huge. So I'm sort of one of those people that I gravitate to the same things for the same stuff pretty consistently, but knowing that I'm going to work with it later, I understand how that's going to work for me in a production. So
and do you, in the evolution of microphones, there's obviously microphones for vocals, it's how you mic different instrumentation, there's all kinds of sort of microphone. Where are we in the technical evolution? Are we at a place where there's breakthroughs and there's new things, there's stuff coming down the pike? What does Shawn the Wizard see?
Well, I mean, I gravitate to fresh versions of old mic designs quite often. We use a lot of Telefunken mics around here, 47, 251. Mojave just came out with a really cool reissue of one of my favorite mics, the Sony C37. And obviously it's nice to have a new version of that. But, we see a lot of stuff come through the doors here. I'm a huge fan of DPA, which, they're trying to push technology all the time to make better, quieter, better performing microphones. And so those see a lot of action in a lot of the sessions that I do. But, a mix of those things and understanding how they work in different capacities always kind of really is something I kind of like to mix. But yeah, the technology of stuff, gravitating towards the reissues of the older stuff is definitely something that I think that I like the sound of. The newer stuff always seems to be a little bit more, maybe detailed, but, not having as much of a sonic imprint on things.
The other day I was listening to, I made a point to find a really good recording, and I was listening to original Frank Sinatra recordings on U47s, and man, it was like the high end was like heavenly. And what's your opinion of a mic that's currently new that can do that?
Well, those U47s that Telefunken's making are amazing microphones. I use that one as one of my go-tos all the time. We have a pair of them here, and there's something about those mics I find that really has a three-dimensional aspect to the sound. You get like that larger than life vocal, you get them on drums, you get a big sound, you get, I find that hard to kind of fake that with a microphone of lesser quality sometimes. So I definitely go towards things like that. You know, we have some of the Manly reference mics, the reference gold and the silvers, and so
Great mic.
a lot of those large diaphragm tube condensers, I think, are really very much like a three-dimensional viewing glass into the audio world. So I gravitate towards those when I have something that I really want to capture with. It's an important piece of the puzzle.
Just a public service announcement here. Back when I used to track, I used to take a tube U47, pretty pristine, and I would just plug it back right into the back of the tape machine. I wouldn't use a preamp, and I used to get a lot of compliments on my drum sounds, and I think that's why it was, because the output of that mic was crazy loud.
Yeah, I mean that's something too. When I deal with a lot of questions from people talking about, what's the best mic preamp, what are the best pieces of gear to put in play or make a vocal chain with, and so getting a microphone that sounds really great. Sometimes, a heavy-handed mic pre is cool, but a lot of the times something that is really transparent that gets out of the way of that and gets it to your recording medium is sort of the best move. Some of the microphone preamps I used years ago, the Mastering Labs mic preamps that were those straight line, for hi-fi, were some of the most amazing sounding things, and it kind of got out of the way of the sound of, what you're trying to record. So I think that's something that people kind of get, a little bit confused on when they're like throwing everything through a 1073 and they're having a hard time getting a clear sound of vocal. It's like, that's a super heavy-handed mic preamp. If you're going for something a little bit cleaner, it's not always going to be the winner for stuff like that.
I imagine one of the things you have to concern yourself about, or mic manufacturers have to, and by the way, for folks watching this, you'll be able to link down below to all the mics we're talking about and take advantage of Sweetwater and utilizing the Pensado relationship to maybe make your game better. But one of the things I would imagine microphone manufacturers have to think about now is the home producer. And those acoustics are different, and how they're recording is different, and space and all kinds of stuff. Is that a space that people have had to focus on and make sure they're coming up with product that's good for? I think the mic I showed earlier is one that kind of works in that space. But what's the perspective in the landscape out there, Shawn?
Well, I mean, obviously we see a lot of clones from a lot of different companies that are sort of, copying older designs. And when you're putting a home studio together, spending $10,000 on a microphone is not always the solution for your situation. So, I mean, we see a lot of different companies doing really cool clones. I mean, we've had a lot of the Warm Audio stuff through here. They've done the 67 and the 800 and the 47 and stuff like that. And, we see that. And it's, the stuff like that is so amazing because it gets you close enough that you're able to do things in that ballpark that you normally wouldn't be able to do, because people, aren't going to buy a whole mic locker worth of $10,000 microphone. So it sort of sets the bar so people can get into that zone without having to break the bank on it. So see a lot of that sort of stuff. And then there's a lot of, budget stuff that comes in, sub $500, lots of really great dynamic mics and stuff. Now people keep pushing the envelope on that stuff. So we see a lot of great stuff from like Telefunken and Biodynamic and things like that, you can really reach some of the higher quality sounds that you would get if you got out of your home studio in an affordable way. But yeah, I think that's something that I see more development in, that is having, how do people make better microphones for less money more consistently. So
Shawn, remember the days when we'd have the piezoelectric flat piece of metal microphone and we would put them on pianos, and whatever happened to that? I just realized I haven't seen one of those in like 20 years. Did we throw them in the trash or something?
I think Radio Shacks closed down and we stopped buying them from there, but we still have a couple Crown PZMs. I think you can still buy them. I've used like Shure Beta 91s in piano.
Crowns are the ones I always used on piano.
Yeah, and for room mics, I've been wanting to try it. I saw some photos recently of a session of some friends of mine were working on, and they set up a sheet of 4x8 plywood in front of the drum kit and taped two of those to that to get some energy off the front of the kit. So they've been on the top of my mind lately, anyways. So I appreciate.
Do you sell them? Does Sweetwater sell them?
I think Crown still produces a PZM microphone. I'm not sure of the model, but I know that I've seen them come through here in a recent capacity. So
I miss them. They were great.
So at Sweetwater in the studio that you work in, which is incredible in and of itself, one of the things that Sweetwater has the advantage of is looking at things early, doing R&D, making decisions, and determining if something fits the right bar. Is that when that process comes to you there, do you just put time aside? Do you put everything in the studio and try everything that comes your way, and so that you can get some sort of, I've always been impressed with how much R&D Sweetwater does before it decides to take something on, and how much knowledge the people there have of everything. Does it become overwhelming because you're Sweetwater?
No, I mean, lots of gear, there's nothing wrong with that. I quite like things flying around. So, but yeah, we get people that'll bring stuff in, when new companies come to the table, we usually have people bring samples and stuff like that. And it's kind of cool to see that. What I really enjoy, having an ability to be part of some R&D on new products of existing companies we've worked with and stuff like that. So it's always kind of cool to get something that's fresh and have, have a chance to play around with it and give some feedback and hopefully, help in some capacity. That's a really cool piece of the puzzle being around here. But, we get into, besides getting like the pre-release stuff, we do a lot of shootouts here in the studio. I don't know if you've seen on our site, we do a lot of different shootouts, a lot of microphone shootouts in different capacities. Me and Lynn Fuston handle a lot of that stuff. He writes the articles and comes up with the ideas, and then I do the engineering. And we get a really good ability to try out way too many microphones on a single source and see how that sounds. So that's something that we've really kind of gone down the rabbit hole on a few things, but it gives us a good opportunity. And then that's a huge resource for customers too on our website. We have the snare drum mic shootout, the guitar mic shootout. We just did one. We picked up band and orchestra instruments recently, and so we have like a trumpet mic shootout, a saxophone mic shootout. So a lot of that stuff where we get a lot of the competing brands together and sort of take a level playing field and give everyone a chance to sort of hear what they do. So
and you know what, that's kind of the reason I brought it up. I literally our friend Chris Flynn, who's lurking around somewhere in the shadows there,
in the corner,
I hit him at 4:00 in the morning about a solution. He made some moves. I had some answers by the time I woke up. And I wasn't being treated special because we're a partner. I was being treated in the way Sweetwater treats people. And part of the reason I asked the question is I want the listening audience to know that if you don't know, you can find out. If you need to know pricing and can get it, and you're going to get attention, and you're going to get the facts, and you're going to make the best decision for your circumstance and your budget inside this ecosystem. And frankly, I don't know another place who does it as well. So it's you guys are musicians who happen to love music and happen to do what you do. You're not salespeople who said, I was selling cars and I came over, I decided to do this.
Yeah, it's quite impressive, the talent that's on our sales floor. I mean, some of the guys have been record producers, engineers for many years, ended up in a sales position here, but some of the knowledge that's up there is second to none. And, they can walk people through, large purchases and finding the right mics for them. And that's something that we really pride ourselves on. The Sweetwater difference goes a long way around here, and it kind of goes, full circle. We try and help out in the studio when we can. We use the studios as demo facilities when we can for larger purchases, big speakers, consoles. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Atmos is a new thing, and that's something we're going to be demoing and things like that. And so all that stuff really kind of sets Sweetwater apart from a lot of places. The guys up there on the sales floor are an amazing group of guys that can sort of help anyone kind of get to their final destination when it comes to gear.
Mm-hmm. What's your take on impedance matching pieces of equipment to help enhance the sound of the microphone? Like we tend to use that. I think it's Cloud, the blue one, right? Is that what it's called?
Cloud Lifter,
yeah, and you can take an SM7 and get it pretty close to an 87. Do you approve of that?
Yeah, well, I use a lot of ribbon mics, especially when it comes to recording drum room mics and stuff like that, and giving that extra headroom so I can keep. Mic preamps are a lot quieter than they used to be, especially when you're using better quality ones. So noise floor isn't quite as much of an issue when you had to crank stuff up, but it opens up those mics so much when you give them that little extra lift. So I use it pretty much. We use the Royer D boosters and the cloud lifters quite often around the studio here. And with some of the mics like the Royers, they have active versions like the 122 and stuff like that. And AEA has some active versions of their mics. We kind of mix and match. But ribbons, I mean, that's always kind of a cool thing on some preamps like the TG2. And if you can get to the back of a 1073 and flip the switch and change the impedance, it's pretty crazy how different might sound when you're messing with that side of things. So
I do that when I don't record too much anymore, but I used to have a custom impedance matching, and I used to use it on direct guitars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I have a question, Shawn.
Get that Nile Rodgers sound. Oh, sorry.
It's all right. I have a question. So if I'm in a group of audio engineers or at some function or whatever the case may be, and if I just throw out a lot of numbers and acronyms, will I seem smarter? Like if I go, hey, the HM6450, I did that with the Blue 51054, and it equated to the 610, back that RCA made in 1910. Will I get away with it, or will I just completely screw myself?
The 610 is a United Audio product. It's a preamp. So you're hitting 50%.
Well, if I just get away with it. But no, I know that's something that I catch myself sometimes. When you're sitting around with a bunch of audio nerds and you're geeking out on stuff, it's cool. Sometimes the more I learn, the more I realize that specific model numbers aren't as important, and that's something that, comes from years of experience of doing stuff. And it's like, there's a lot of interchangeable stuff. And in the end of the day, it's going to be really hard to tell what microphone you used on a specific recording. So if you're talking model numbers and stuff, it's usually, there's a little bit of a flex that goes on there, and,
it's impressive.
Hopefully you can show off a bit, but at the same time,
it's impressive.
It's not the most important thing in the world.
Yeah. I've actually watched, ladies in audio, visibly be moved by somebody who can throw out a bunch of acronyms and stuff like that. So I don't have the capacity to do it. So I make it up and I get busted. They go, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So
I like it when you do that.
So we sit here today. We find that we're at this interesting confluence of, obviously the home studio is one thing, but there's all these other pockets, praise and worship. And obviously we're seeing some green shoots around the live thing, but we have to see where it goes. And then there's the other side where, we got manufacturers who are trying to figure out how to have microphones for podcasts that easily can, do things. So there's the fun part about our business is that there's an inexorable march forward constantly. And as it marches forward, it's how do you not only figure out are we going to be selling mics in the metaverse? Could be. I mean, Nike's selling tennis shoes in the metaverse and people are buying. And so as the question is that microphones have to be concerned about staying on the cutting edge, just like everything else, but also make sure that the quality and consistency of what you can depend on a microphone, which is not necessarily new, is part and parcel of the product you're getting. Correct?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, that's a big piece, but I think we will be mixing audio for the metaverse, and people already are. So I think that's a thing, but. As far as microphones go for, all of those different applications, like, you talk about studio mics, you talk about live mics, house of worship stuff, podcast. The thing that I've always been concerned about is like, what is going to give me the best end result? So I've spent a lot of time doing live sound, but also at the same time doing live recording where I released all of the shows I mix when I work with the Counting Crows. So besides being in the studio doing stuff, I'm in the live realm releasing finished product. Through the pandemic, I helped out some house of worship stuff, doing streaming audio and stuff like that. And it's pretty crazy how much microphone choice results in a better end product if you're using good microphones and good proper mic technique, and how much that sort of really implies, that I care about this and I'm trying to choose the right things to make this sound as good as possible so that the people on the end of receiving this, consuming the end product, are going to enjoy it as much as possible. So, and I think that's something even to consider about like the cutting edge of stuff is like, is the metaverse going to be something where we put the Oculus on and we have an array of microphones that records the space that we're in to then, produce content for that. The immersive stuff is so readily available now. It's like, how do we start recording for that? And that's something I've been sort of playing with and trying to figure out how to track, tracking sessions with extra microphones that now I can mix into Atmos mixes and things like that. And so I think the technology of the microphone isn't going to change a lot, but just maybe the use of it or how we use it in the end result of the content is going to sort of modify itself.
Shawn, I think we haven't talked about the importance of preamps. Like a $20,000 microphone with a $200 preamp ain't gonna sound good. And so I think what keeps U47 and some of these microphones at the top is new preamps. The 1073 is a beautiful preamp, but it doesn't fit in a modern world. In terms of vocals now with pop music and then the 800 is gone. The Sony 800 is gone, and so I think a discussion maybe give us one or two really good quality preamps other than 1073s that you find match up with great mics, because that has to happen.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'll correct you on that. Sony is producing a current version of the 800. I have yet to hear it, and they were back ordered quite a ways, but they do exist again, which is
really,
yeah. So that's kind of cool that they're reproducing them. I've never actually seen one in person, but we've sold a bunch of them. So I would like to get my ears on that at some point in time. But I think I gravitate towards two styles of preamps. I go Chandler preamps. TG2 has been one of my favorite for many years. And then, the Rupert Neve 5052, that's something that's a staple around here. We have, 32 of those in our console, and that's something that's my everyday, for tracking a band, that's what stuff's going through. But then I switch, I flip that to something super clean. We have some of the gray stuff and some of the Earthworks mic preamps that are like completely transparent. And so if I'm trying to capture something without coloring it and get something super hi-fi, I kind of go to that. So it's not something that, I think they're at either end of the spectrum, but they're all super, super high level preamps, but some are super heavy handed in the coloration. You can saturate some transformers and stuff. And the other ones are sort of very open and transparent, but really kind of allow whatever you're doing to come through without any coloration. So
yeah, it widens the scope of what you can do with an individual microphone for sure. The TG2, I love it. You can't hit it hard, but I like it.
Yeah, no, it's I owned a bunch of them in a previous life when I had to own gear, and they were my go-to. So
the one of the things that is often left out in the process is, do you guys focus on making sure that you have ear health? It doesn't help if your ears are messed up and you can't hear, and your job is to hear things.
What'd you say?
Yeah, what was that?
I can't hear you.
Yeah, louder is always better, I think. As far as ear health, I mean, monitoring at a reasonable level. I like, especially when I'm tracking with someone or mixing in a way to kind of get the mix together. I go a little bit louder and then kind of bring it down to sort of figure it out. But I find, one of the really important things when you're recording people or working with people on a stage is monitor mixes for people are going to be something that's super important, that's highly looked over, especially in the studio. You give someone a headphone box, you're like, here, go figure it out. And I try and spend some time dialing in everyone's mixes so that we can have, people performing to something that sounds good. I think that's something that's really important. And then in the control room, sometimes I'll listen on headphones at a reasonable volume. I've got in-ears in right now. I use a lot of that, especially in the live setting, trying to avoid, really loud things. I have a personal policy. If it hurts, I'll leave at a show. So if it's painfully loud, I'll just walk out. It's not worth my trouble. But molded earplugs and things like that are good. But I find like a lot of people rely so heavily on an earplug in a performance situation that they just keep turning everything up, and it makes everyone else's life more difficult. So
yeah.
I don't know, that's something that, you got to play, it's a fine line, because we do need to listen. We do need to feel some emotion from the audio so we can do something hopefully cool with it. And if we're not listening loud enough, that's not going to come through. So
Yeah, just a side note. Volume is not the only issue. Frequency response, like for example, a cymbal at 90 dB is going to hurt your hearing, whereas a guitar or let's say an organ at 90 dB is not going to hurt you that much, if at all. And so you have to make sure that you like the reason I still have my hearing pretty close to normal is because I hate the sound of cymbals. So I always stay away from the drummer, and you can't find a drummer that can hear anymore. You know,
Well, I grew up as a drummer, but hi-hat is my least favorite instrument, so I can get that out of everything. But yeah, no, that's something, making sure that you're not hurting anybody around you too. I find that that's something too when I'm listening. They're like, "Oh, that's kind of loud," and if it's making other people uncomfortable, I try and read the room and make sure I'm not doing anything stupid.
Right. What would you advise somebody is out there clicking these links, checking on the microphones we've been talking about, going to Sweetwater and stuff? What would you advise somebody? What is the process that somebody should go through in terms of making their selection? Is it doing due diligence? Is it finding some place to ask questions? What do I, the consumer, do?
Well, we do, like I said, we have a lot of resources on the InSync portion of Sweetwater's website where we have a lot of shootouts, so you can get an actual example of the microphone you're looking at. The other thing too, as far as like Sweetwater Studios exists, we are a, for hire studio. If people want to come check out microphones or like do a session and kind of run the gamut of things they want to try, it's always an option around here too, is if you're in the neighborhood to come try out pretty much, most of the high-end microphones we sell, we have in the studio here. So that's something that's always on the table, which is kind of interesting because most people don't have that opportunity. And then, if people are looking at something if they have a ballpark idea, one of our lovely sales engineers can probably point them in the direction they're probably going to be the most happy with. So I think there's a few different ways to do that around here, but try and give the consumers a lot of options.
No, I mean, it makes perfect sense, and it's such an important piece in the recording process. Good to know that there is a way to get to the best results instead of just prayer and I walked in and I just pointed my finger at that because it looked cute.
Yeah, that's my favorite way to pick mics is the way they look. So
yeah, absolutely. Always a surefire way to ensure quality.
That one looks the best. It should sound fine.
Absolutely, it should be okay. Don't worry about it. Because we're in a constant, technical evolution, I think. And I look at all the different ways people record and a consumer that has been brought up on my laptop or my phone or that's the key stuff I use, and how do it's a completely different thing than being in a studio with a console. Hell, inside the studio has changed, but Sweetwater covers the gamut of what's all available.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many 2-channel audio interfaces we've sold over the last couple of years. I mean, it's in tens of thousands. Everybody, a lot of people using Zoom and stuff like that bought into it, and so the exponential growth of like the laptop setup to record stuff is really kind of it's almost commonplace in most people's homes now. So
right.
Being able to have that and how powerful that stuff is pretty impressive. But the flip side of that is when you are creating music, we do a lot of bands that track together around here, and it's something that's really hard to pull off. I was a home studio owner for many years and had some commercial facilities, but like having the space to put people together to create music is something that is a difficult undertaking when you're in your house or in an apartment or on your laptop. So there's both sides of that. But that being said, we cater to just about everybody that does anything when it comes to music or other around here. So it's not like anything is totally off the table. We have people that come into the studio and plug in a laptop and just use our interface or bring their interface and use our speakers and stuff like that. So that's still that happens around here. Even, when you see a laptop and a 2-channel converter sitting on a $200,000 console, it's kind of a shame, but that's how they're creative. That's their workflow. And that's something that, exists. And we try and at least accommodate everyone we possibly can.
You can't ask for better than that, guys. If you're watching this, this is where you go to find out what you need to know. It's just that simple. The fun part is that the consistency of we have been connected for probably the last 4 years thereabouts, and the Sweetwater way is so consistent. It doesn't matter who we talk to. It doesn't matter what it's about. It's always top notch. It's always immediate. It's always solution oriented, and it's always chill. Like the chill part counts. I've had the psychotic sales guy going, and just like it's like having a barking dog, and that just ain't the way to make a creative decision.
I gotta say, it's pretty chill in Fort Wayne, so there's not a lot of stuff to get you worked up about around here. So
Fort Wayne is cool.
Yeah,
Dave and I've gone, and just wherever audience, go to Paula's. You will not believe that in the middle of the country.
Herb, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten yet. Why you got to go there?
I hate to rub it in. I was already there this week, so.
Oh man, I used to like you, Shawn.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have to come back and we'll go again.
It's like Crab goes from Deadliest Catch on television, marches right to Fort Wayne, stays fresh, and has its own. As somebody who never misses an episode of Deadliest Catch, by the way. And I'm telling you, man, Dave and I ate crab there, and just
every night.
I almost proposed to Dave at the end of it. It was literally that good.
That's what that was about. I didn't realize that. Sorry.
Yeah, it was the crab. It wasn't you. It's because you kind of smell like a crab.
Thank goodness.
So, Shawn, before we get completely off the rails, I think that this as a service to the consumer, because that is such a fundamental piece of gear that you're going to buy, and you might be miking instruments and miking cymbals, and there's miking that has to do with front of house and how those processes and technology goes. Do it with expertise, guys. Do it with people who can help you make the right decision, and particularly the right decision for your budget. Because if you have a good experience and you don't go broke, you'll continue to grow and go to the next step, and to find people committed to helping you solve that I think is a great and important service.
I'd like to do a batter's box.
Oh, Shawn, are you ready for that?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
You're not ready, Shawn.
Come on.
Tee it up. Let's go.
Okay. Favorite guitar mic?
Ooh. Can I pick more than one?
No.
Good answer.
Sennheiser 409.
251 or 47?
47.
Favorite preamp?
TG2.
Tape.
Sure, why not?
Okay, I should quit right there. Dynamic mics.
Telefunken M81.
Tube mics.
U47.
Favorite vocal mic?
47, 67. Depends on the person singing.
The lowly overhead mic. Favorite?
Sheps.
Oh, that's too expensive. SM7. My favorite mic.
Great for a hi-hat.
Oh, come on, man. Okay, I got to remove some points for that.
I'm sorry.
Bass mic.
421.
Well, I don't think that's
bass amp or upright.
I've only recorded 2 uprights in my life, so no, I like the answer. Good stuff, man. Way to go.
Cool.
Well, now that that's out of the way, there's a best mic for sax.
You'll have to find out for yourself and check out our sax mic shootout. So.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
They all sound like saxophone. I'll tell you that. So.
There's some history to that in Sweetwater, why they sound like a saxophone.
Yeah.
So, right. Shawn, we dig you, man. One of Winnipeg's finest from another Canadian. Absolutely. Old Canada. But the knowledge and the zeal and the passion that you have for what you're doing is really what makes a difference. Audience, you got it. Again, check the links below. Go check out. It's an opportunity for you to make smart decisions, good for your budget, good for your recording, good for your creativity. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Thanks so
Bye,
much.
everybody.